Hello viewers, this is Step Ahead Driving School, where we train to save lives through quality education. My name is Pascal Wilson Agbo, and I'm a driving instructor in this special school. The topic I'm going to treat today has to do with how to operate a car. Now, before you operate a car, you definitely have to do an early morning routine checks. Because the vehicle is left overnight, then when you wake up in the morning, there are certain things that you need to check. And what you need to check first has to do with the level of your engine oil. Then you have to check what we call the radiator. The radiator has to do with a fluid we call the coolant. Formerly, the old vehicles were using water. That is why locally you find them calling it water tank. The water tank is what we call the radiator. The radiator now is using a liquid we call coolant. It comes in different colors. You find green, you find orange, you find blue. It all does the same thing. So there are always compartments where these fluids are filled. So you only have to look at the level every time. They see whether they are at the maximum level or in the minimum level. If it is reducing, that will mean that you have to top it up. One thing you also have to check is the power steering fluid, which is all part of the one we normally call the brake fluid. You have to check this compartment and see whether it's in the right level. You also have to check another fluid, which is basically just ordinary water. The compartment is what we call the washer fluid compartment. You have to watch that one too. Then you have to check on your battery to see whether the terminals are tightened well against it. Now, the next thing that you have to look at in the engine has to do with the timing belt. You check that one too. You also have to check for all the lights and see whether they are all working. Normally, it's one thing that drivers don't check, but it's always advisable for you to check it in the morning before you even start your journey. One other thing that you also have to check has to do with what? The pressure in your tire. So the tire pressure. Sometimes people drive on the road just to be cautioned or just to be prompted that your tire is down, simply because you didn't check. The next thing I have to check on the tire is whether there are some dents or whether some parts are popped up or anything like that. So these are the things you have to check in the morning before you even take off. Now, one other most important thing that you have to check too has to do with what? The engine oil. If you look into the engine, there's this particular instrument that looks like there's a yellow cap on it. So you draw it out, which is called the dip stick. So you take it out, use either any other material to clean the one that's on it first. Dip it back inside, and there you'll be able to see the correct gauge in which it is. It has on the tip of it, you have the full gauge and you have the low gauge. It should always be around the full gauge. So these are the things you have to make sure that you check every morning before you even start the vehicle. The next topic has to do with what we call the cockpit drill. The cockpit drill is what you do when you first open your door and sit in the car. What are you going to look out for? You're going to check how to do what? How the sitting position. It's very, very key. You have to make sure that you are comfortably seated before you even adjust your seatbelt. So what you do with the cockpit drill has to do with you checking and adjusting the mirrors properly. If it's like you have two people who use this same vehicle, probably you are taller than the other person. His or her adjustment of the mirror is going to be different from yours. So you always make sure that you set your mirror properly so that you'll be able to read behind you. You should be able to be reading behind you anytime you are traveling. The next thing you have to do is you have to put on your seatbelt after all these ones are done. Now, after you are properly seated, this is the point where you are about to take off. Now, it depends on the transmission vehicle that you're going to use. We have the manual transmission gear cars and we have the automatic transmission gear cars. Now, with the manual transmission gear cars, how do we take off? We have two approaches. We have the one that you use the clutch with the brake, And another one that we use was the clutch and the accelerator. In using the clutch and accelerator, down there below the steering wheel is what you can find these 3 pedals or 2 pedals. The left pedal is the one referred to as the clutch. The one in the middle represents the brake pedal. And the one on the extreme right, that is the accelerator. So if you are going to use the first approach, which has to do with you using the brake and the clutch approach, you first depress the brake a little bit, then you disengage the clutch. Disengaging the clutch here means you have to press the clutch down to the floor. Now, your gear is always situated beside you on the right. On the gear are different positions. You see the first, the second, the third, the fourth, and even an R. The R represents what? Reverse position. Now, if you are about to take off, the gear position in which the car is supposed to be is the first gear. That is 1. So, when you disengage the clutch by stepping on it, and you place your foot on the brake, using the brake and the clutch approach, what you're going to do is you're going to start the vehicle with the key in the key pot, turn it on until the vehicle starts. Now, you change your gear when you have disengaged the clutch to the first gear. Now, when it's on the first gear, what you do is you start engaging the clutch by taking your foot off the clutch. So as you keep taking your foot off the clutch, that is when you are engaging it into a particular gear. Now, it counts when it gets to the point where the vehicle is set in motion to take off. It comes with a peculiar sign. What marks that particular sign is it will get to a point where the vehicle will come with a peculiar vibration. The whole vehicle begins to vibrate, and the sound of the engine also does what? Changes. That is where the vehicle is about to do what? To take off. When it reaches this particular point, it is called a friction point. Other people call it the biting point. That is where you have to hold on to it for a little while. This is the point where you let the brake go. You disengage the brake, then you put your foot on the accelerator and give it a slight acceleration. At this point, you have to delay the clutch a little bit until the vehicle takes off. If you are in a haste to take off, to disengage the clutch immediately, the car could stall. Stalling here means the car will go off. So allow the vehicle to set in motion before you release your foot from the clutch. And that is where the vehicle is engaged in the first gear. So when the vehicle takes off and you hear the sound of the engine increasing, that means the car is demanding for what? A higher gear. That is where you stop accelerating, disengage the clutch by stepping on it, and shift your gear into the second gear. With this one, there is no biting point, there's no friction point attached to it. You don't also use the brake. You only let go the clutch and it will flow. So the subsequent ones, that is how it goes. Now, one thing about the manual gear, the manual transmission car is that when the vehicle increases, you increase the position of the gear. And when the vehicle reduces its speed, you reduce the position of the gear as well. If you want to stop the car, in whichever gear you are, you have to start depressing the clutch gradually and slowly. Now, with a manual gear, you have to disengage the clutch in addition to it. Either than that, the vehicle will stall. It will go up. So anytime you attempt stopping the car, make sure that you do that in unison, the brake in unison with what? The clutch. This is how to use the clutch and the brake approach. The second approach, which has to do with what? The accelerator and the clutch approach. You step on the accelerator and the clutch together. But this particular approach is used when the vehicle is on the flat ground, or sometimes when it is descending. That one it can go. But when it is climbing, as soon as you take your foot off the clutch without engaging the handbrake, that will mean that the vehicle will start reversing. So what you have to do is you have to make sure the vehicle is on a flat ground, or maybe it is descending. With this one, when the vehicle is started, you give it a little acceleration, just a little bit, not too much. Then you start easing your foot on the clutch. At the biting point, the vehicle itself will do what? Will take off. This one is very simple. Now, with the manual transmission, the automatic transmission car, you only have 2 pedals. So it is the right foot that engages both the brake and the accelerator. So this is how to move a manual car. If I come your way with another addition, then start pondering about this one and make sure you drive well. This is Step Ahead Driving School, where we do what? We train through quality education to save lives. See you in the next episode.